From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of Ticats This Week. I'm RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker. Luke, you're back. How you been?
I'm doing good, man. I am love to get back here in the mix. I'm back in the lower 48, they call it, from Alaska, and getting ready for Monday.
What's the weather like in Alaska? Is it cold yet?
It was already effectively winter. It snowed for the first 3 days we were there, and not an Alaskan winter, but it's still fall for them. But the days weren't. I was looking forward to getting to see some it's crazy short days in the winter and long in the summer, but in the fall it happens to be very normal daylight hours. So that was sort of an 8 to 8 type of thing for sunlight, which is normal, but cold weather. It's kind of nice to come back here for a few weeks of warm before our temperatures start dropping.
Yeah, looks like we're going to get pretty lucky for Thanksgiving Monday for the game against the Argonauts. It should be a beautiful day, so fingers crossed on that. Got to ask you, Luke, 4-4 record. Tiger Cats have already lost more than the 2019 season, the 18-game season that you were a part of. We've seen some good, some really good. We've seen some not so good. There's been lots of injuries, lots of inconsistencies. I guess with a year off because of COVID, maybe we shouldn't be super surprised by inconsistencies, but are you at all surprised by the first 8 games of the season?
You know what? A little bit I am. I just am still so anxious and excited to see what I would call a fully operational Ticats offense. I want to see some aerial attack, right? And now we're all watching, and that makes the game exciting. It's the CFL is bent towards and lends itself to passing offenses. We just haven't gotten a great picture of that this year so far. So in that sense, a little bit surprised, but it's a new year. The reality is that the East still hangs to be taken by whatever team. And Ottawa with a tough loss to Toronto on Wednesday. Even they're not out of this yet. They're still fighting for a chance at the playoffs, and nothing's been decided yet. And so, in the Task and Twos show this week, Andy and I were discussing that there were years during our careers with the Ticats where not only if you didn't put a perfect game out there, we ended up losing. It seemed like it's not only that. It's that everything had to be – you had to fire on all cylinders, and sometimes even you'd have a great game and you'd come out behind. But, where this year the defense, the special teams, the complementary football are allowing the Ticats to win games without a sort of classic Tommy Condell high-scoring, 300-plus passing yard type of performances. And so – it's different, yes, but the playoffs, the real important thing, first place in the East and a chance at the Grey Cup is still so much within grasp. It's kind of like, whatever, let's just win games however it takes to win games. And Monday we might see the same thing. I'm not going to be shocked if there's nothing close to 300 yards passing and still the Ticats are able to come out on top.
Yeah, that's the great point, is they're still right there, still battling for first place, and obviously a huge, huge game against the Argos. They'll only have 4 days off in between games, and that was a weird game against Ottawa that they had too. Hardly any scoring in the first half, and then 27 points or whatever. The Argos scored in the third quarter, a couple of defensive returns for touchdowns, and a lot of talk about Chris Jones as their defensive coordinator and different looks. And is he that much of a genius and a concern for other teams' offenses?
Well, I think it speaks really highly for him as to the changes that have been made in the few weeks that he's been a part of the Argonaut organization. And I think he does bring with him, I think it's followed him around the CFL, he does bring a certain confidence or swagger to his defenses that he's a part of. I mean, they had 3 interceptions, or I think it's 5 interceptions over the last 2 games. It's hard to lose games when you're stealing the ball away that efficiently. Genius, I don't know. It's a really complicated team sport, but I think that he brings some immediate effects. He obviously does, I should say. if I'm the Ticats right now, and they have done a decent job of this in the games that they've struggled offensively but managed to win, they have not turned the ball over. And I think you're playing against a defense who is hot and confident. And with Chris Jones, those guys are practicing stripping the ball out. They're talking about not only how to intercept the ball, they're talking about what to do after they've intercepted the ball. They're probably setting up blocking schemes as defensive players once the ball has been turned over. You have to prevent offensive turnovers going into a Chris Jones defense.
And you look at the statistics, they don't lie for the Tiger Cats. Those 2 turnovers against Montreal, first time they've had multiple turnovers in a game since week 2 and week 1, and those weeks didn't go great for the Tiger Cats. Going into that game against Montreal with Jeremiah Masoli back at quarterback and Braylon Addison in and Brandon Banks back, I had some pretty high expectations for the offense in that game. And I think a lot of Ticats fans would agree they weren't lights out on offense. Again, is that kind of to be expected with getting back together and Braylon Addison his first game? Masoli hasn't played much in the last few years, and Brandon Banks missed a few games. So going forward, can we expect a little more cohesive offense?
Yeah, I think so. But I don't think that it was really to be expected. I think a lot of us, and I would put myself in this mix here, that I really thought right off the bat maybe we would see a different looking Ticats offense. I think that you could argue that one more piece will be added to the working machine of the Ticats offense, and Chris Van Zyl probably making a return this week. So, getting a little bit of a stronger protection in front of Jeremiah Masoli with some of those weapons back that he had last week. Again, there's always something that we're missing from an outsider's perspective. I really truly felt this as a player, that the story would get written that, let's say, the receivers are back. Can Jeremiah Masoli put together the offense that we knew and had seen in years past? And when that didn't, we can't quite capture about this team right now. But I wonder, Chris Van Zyl comes in, and there might be a certain level of confidence or comfort, just experience that he adds to the entire offensive approach. That might be another thing that pushes them over the edge and back into a place of really, really efficient passing. Again, just because Braylon Addison is back, you're never playing at 100%. Brandon Banks, we know that he's been dealing with things all season, so it's that there are those things that we can't quite see as easily from our perspective as onlookers. I do have hopes that still, as the season progresses, that we are going to see an efficient passing approach, though I do believe that they will get there.
And we are recording this on Friday, so it's a few days before the game. Speedy B, questionable if he's going to be able to play. Frankie Williams, we don't know if he'll be able to play. So those are a couple of pretty big holes, too. Just looking at some numbers, Luke, and I asked Coach O about it. The fourth quarters for the Tiger Cats, the last 3 games, they've been outscored in the fourth quarter. 6 of 8 games this year, they've been outscored in the fourth quarter. And he had a good answer. Just every game's different. Circumstances are always different. But is there any reason for Ticats fans to be concerned that late in games the Tiger Cats are being outscored?
Yeah, I think that is a telling statistic, in my opinion. And you're going against a team who just scored 27 points in the third quarter. The way that you finish, the way that you complete a defensive game, because the Ticats defense has been, for the most part, very impressive this year. But there's been some of these last end of game drives that have been successful for opposing teams. It's interesting, right? Because those game ending drives, when a team is putting it all on the table, well, you've got an extra. You're not going to punt anyway, so you're playing 3 downs to get a first down. You're playing a little bit more high risk. McLeod Bethel Thompson coming in the end of the game for Labor Day drove down and put points on the board. So some of that fourth quarter stats gets a little bit skewed because the offense is really playing a little bit differently. But I think it would be a point in the defensive meeting rooms throughout this week to finish right, to finish well. Some of that, I think, maybe in the to speak specifically to the Ticats defense, I think that might manifest itself in keeping your foot on the gas. Don't get into some of that soft coverage. Keep an aggressive approach that's been beating teams throughout the year. We'll see. I think a really, really interesting thing to watch for, especially, and we hope that Frankie's able to play. He's been battling things physically as well. But the Argonauts had a blocked punt for a touchdown, defensive turnovers and touchdowns. That battle between the two special teams units and the two defensive units is going to be huge. A guy like Frankie Williams, I would love to be able to see him, but only if he's healthy. I think it's a bad move for a guy like that to come back too soon, still in the mid-season here with playoffs and big games ahead.
Big game, massive game. I think it's safe to say biggest game of the season so far for the Tiger Cats, and we could maybe say that every week from here on into the end of the regular season. But Argos are on a short week. You look at the other East Division game that will lead into our game at Tim Hortons Field, beginning at 4 o'clock Eastern between the Argos and the Ticats. But the first game at 1 o'clock Eastern is Montreal home to Ottawa. In Ottawa, same situation as Toronto. They have those 4 days off, so you'd have to think with that short week, it's big time advantage Montreal. Montreal has a game in hand. They could really tighten things up in this East Division. How massive, in your opinion, is a win against the Argos on Monday?
And as you start to piece the puzzles together of the East here, if Montreal is able to get the win and then the Ticats fall short, then we have a really interesting standing in the East. And so, every game every game counts, but you can't help but say this one is pretty important. And this weekend, the East is going to have developed and it's going to start to be taking shape. And it won't be set in stone by any means after this weekend, but it'll start to take shape. A win for the Ticats puts them in first place in the East, gives them an equal record with Toronto and one game in hand against Toronto. And you could maybe hope for Ottawa to make that happen and take care of business there. But a lot of things in the balance, really, really big game for the Ticats. There's no way around it, and it's going to be very exciting to see.
And Argos could really put a stranglehold on first place if they walk into Tim Hortons Field and get a victory, but we know that'll be tough. Tiger Cats have had a lead in 7 of 8 games this season. The only time they didn't lead was that September 10th game against the Argonauts in Toronto. So it'll be the third meeting of the season, third of 4 meetings. They're 1-1. The Ticats and Argos should be massive. Luke, can't wait to have you back and can't wait to find out how everything shakes out on Monday.
I'll see you there, RJ. Ticat fans, can't wait to have you in the house.
Yes. Loud on Thanksgiving, and the Argos Tiger Cats, we got you set up for it, 4 o'clock Eastern time. That's it for Ticats this week. Hope you'll be able to be at the game. If not, please listen on the Ticats audio network. We will have the call for you.
The Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker. Like and subscribe to get their preview the last weekday before every Ticats game.